make the dough fresh every day. Pile on the good things.
It's great, I think.
We make them and bake them and serve them with pride at Showbiz Pizza Place.
Showbiz Pizza Place. Great fun and great pizza.
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity, where we talk about drinking culture, pop culture, and 80s cartoon culture. Joining me as always is Brandon.
Hello, my people.
Kale.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Jim.
Hey, everybody.
I've got to say, Jim, that was a little underwhelming after the whole thing. So we'll try and pick it up after.
All right.
All right. Today we're going to talk about, last week we kind of talked about something a lot more heavy. Last week we talked about science fiction. Sorry. We didn't talk about something heavy. Well, a little heavy, I guess. This week we're talking about something not heavy at all. Unless you're on Twitter and there's a new version of it that comes out, in which case you attack every person who's ever been affiliated with it, which is, of course, 80s cartoons. But before we talk about cartoons, let's talk about drinking. Brandon, what do you have tonight?
I have kind of a sore throat going on. I've tested negative for COVID, but I'm still not feeling great. So I kind of kept it light. I have some cold brew with some rye in it.
Fair enough. Jim?
I made an evil concoction, apparently. I have some of these little bottles, Jim Beam flavored, and I put some Coke in with the cherry flavored Red Stag and the vanilla, and it's not recommended.
I wasn't going to say anything, but you know what you need? You need a good cocktail channel. Kel, what are you having?
I got a variety pack. Check out my 6-pack. It's mostly stouts and a cherry and a wheat, or a cherry wheat and a lager.
I know this isn't the topic tonight. Gil, are you a dark beer fan?
When it comes to beers, I prefer a darker beer, a heavier beer, something with more body to it.
I find that to be the case for myself. I like the dark.
Not to shit on American beers, but most of them are piss water.
So I'm with you guys. Darker the better.
Eric Idle said, "How is American beer like having a sex in a canoe? It's fucking close to water." And sometimes I try to relate my cocktail to today's. I can't think of anything. I'm having a Boulevardier because I like having Boulevardiers because it's a great cocktail.
I believe
and actually, it doesn't relate to. Well, I guess the GoBots are bitter, and there's Campari in this, so whatever. It does bring up something though, and we're going to talk about it on the cocktail side of the channel at some point, probably next month. I'm thinking March. I was going through my booze collection, and I have, as Brandon and Kale will certainly be aware, a rather voluminous number of bottles in my collection. And there's a number of bottles which I didn't really like, and so I think it's a good idea to find cocktails that you can put bottles of whiskey or rum in that you don't particularly like. The nice thing about a Boulevardier is the Campari very much takes over. So you can put a not so great bourbon in there and you're going to be just fine. So this is a smoked bourbon from Texas that I didn't particularly care for, but it's perfectly fine in a Campari.
What does it mean to be a smoked bourbon?
I remember you.
Okay. Smoke can actually mean a bunch of different things. If you're a like a peated Scotch, what they're doing is they're actually smoking the barley before it's even fermented. But I'm not sure what they did here. If they did that, you can just smoke the actual liquid. It's possible. You just run smoke through it. Use a lot of cocktails. So I'm not sure which one they did. It's not very smoky, so I kind of think they probably smoked the barley and or the rye. But that's sort of the typical way of doing it. Anyway, so going forward, we're gonna talk about 80s cartoons, and all of us have watched several 80s cartoons in our lifetime. So the way we're gonna handle this, we're gonna break this episode up a little bit, probably do a few different parts. I'm not sure how many yet, but we're gonna do this by year. We're looking at all of the 80s cartoons, not all the 80s cartoons. We're looking at all the 80s cartoons that any one of us have some level of experience with, or some affinity with, or something to say. And so we're going to go through those. If we don't mention the cartoon that you like, then tell us about it in the comments. This is not saying, or do that. This is not saying those cartoons aren't good. It's just saying that they weren't ones that, stuck with us. I don't know. What do you guys have any initial thoughts on what is your 80s cartoon history? What do you have to say about 80s cartoons, Brandon?
I there's a lot of them on here, so I can't comment on most of them. But I loved all the time I spent watching cartoons on a Saturday morning. I wasn't allowed to stay up late on Saturday nights because I had to go to church on Sundays. But I always had the chance to stay up on Friday nights and watch TV. So I'd stay up to like 3 a.m. watching TV, and then get up at 6 a.m. to watch cartoons, and then probably take a nap after 12:30 when golf or fishing or something came on.
Or golf fishing. Jim, what about you?
I think Saturday mornings were magical with cartoons. For a lot of years, there's great stuff on Saturday morning, and I got hours of entertainment out of it. And then somewhere around the mid to late 80s, the cartoons, I thought, got crappy, or I wasn't as interested. And then kind of the afternoon cartoons took over. So there was still good stuff to watch, just wasn't on Saturday morning anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. I think the 90s actually had some really great cartoons, but it was very different too. I'm probably the two biggest examples would be, and I remember, did Batman the Animated Series start in the 80s or 90s? It was 90s, wasn't it? Yeah. So like Batman the Animated Series and the X-Men Animated Series, I thought were great. But definitely different from the 80s cartoons. The 80s cartoons is a very, I think, kind of distinct style to them. Kale, what do you think?
I apparently didn't remember as much as I thought I did, because I was looking through the list of references that you gave, and I was just like, okay, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, just constantly. And I mean, there's a few there that I didn't really watch, and the list that I gave you personally, I'm not sure a lot of people actually watched those.
Yeah, it's funny. I felt like I remembered a lot, and I felt like I didn't remember more. It's strange. It's like, I think you have this idea in your mind that you watched all the 80s cartoons, then you look at these lists and you're like, oh wow, I didn't even watch half of the 80s cartoons.
Well, at one point I attempted to get my son to know the Thundercats theme song. So I was looking it up on YouTube, and then I found this 80s compilation that we ended up watching a lot. And so now I know more of the theme songs than I do even some of the cartoons at this point.
Oh, we'll definitely talk theme songs, because there's one cartoon that I never liked. And so I don't know, did you guys have a cartoon that you didn't necessarily like, but it came in between other cartoons, and so you watched it like kind of religiously, almost by accident? There's one that we'll get into kind of much later on that was like that. And I think it had one of the best cartoon theme songs. That's like underrated cartoon theme song.
So I'm sure that happened to me. I just don't remember.
Well, I'll tell you what mine was when we get to it. It's a very, I do like the show, and I watched it a million times.
I don't know when ScoobyDoo was on. I do know that I never really liked it, and I ended up watching it a lot. So maybe that was one that was between something that I wanted to watch.
Well, let's hold off on ScoobyDoo opinions, because these come up fairly quickly. The first one is one I'm familiar with the name. I'm not really familiar with the cartoon, and that's the Little Bits. If anybody knows the pronunciation.
Little Bits.
So, Kale, did you mark them?
No.
I'm pretty sure you sent me anything.
I didn't either.
I'm pretty sure you marked that.
I know nothing about the Little Bits. I can't even pronounce it.
I just wanted to say Little Bits.
No, I was kind of dreading this, because I was like, I kept looking at it and I was like, you would expect it would be L-I like apostrophe L or L-I-L apostrophe or something like that. But no, it's spelled L-I-T-T-L apostrophe bits. That doesn't make any sense. That's just Little Bits. And why would you just take the E out? And what does an apostrophe sound different from it? Like, It doesn't make any sense. It's infuriating. And if
You're
nobody
now
wants to talk about
required-
them, then we're not going to talk about them.
You're now required to put a link in the bottom in the comments.
Is
I
there
will do no
anything
such
you can
thing.
tell us about the little bits?
If you're not going to tell us, the internet will. Goddamn.
We can do a couple little trivia bits here and there. It was on for
little bit trivia.
a little trivia. You see, it feels wrong in your mouth. You look at it and you're like, it's an affront to mankind. It's an affront to society and language.
I mean, that's not what I was thinking, but okay.
Well, I'm a deep
Got
thinker.
a lot of
brother.
hate for
I
little.
feel like you just said little bits don't feel good in your mouth.
Well, they're small, so you could probably eat them. I mean, they're basically the Smurfs. They're like, except they came a little bit before the Smurf. Well, the TV show did anyway.
Little bits before the Smurf.
The children of the Little Bits from left to right were Willibit, Lilibit, Snagglebit. I think I see where they're going here. Brownie Bit and Chip.
So
The
they're all-
original
really?
Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Except
It
for
ran
the
for it ran for 26 episodes from January 7th. So very, very early in 1980. And it was canceled by July.
Sounds about right.
It's probably a crappy show.
I just can't believe they named one of them Chip. Like, how do you screw up the naming? Lilibit,
Chipple
Willibit,
bits.
Snagglebit, Brownie Bit, Teeny Bit, and Chip.
And Bob.
They were
And
trying
Mis-
to be quirky.
And the adults were Mr. Snoozabit and Mayor Bossabit. Oh, and Brandon, you mentioned the Spice Girls. There's actually a scary bit.
Of course there was.
These are all I'm gonna read some of these names. They're kind of funny. The Scary Bit, Chop a Bit. What did Chop a Bit do?
Eat
Eat
shot.
things.
He was a woodcutter. Bake a Bit.
He was a
Don't
baker.
overthink it.
Smack a
Uh,
bitch.
What?
Grump a Bit.
I bet he was Grumpy Smurf.
He was an asshole. Help a Bit.
I'm
You get it?
betting-
Not too much though. He like
He's a bit
takes like
big.
2 swings with the axe and walks away.
I think people
And-
can take
An
their-
Elder Bit, which that's kind of a shitty name. Anyway, nobody
he's-
nobody among us
he's-
has seen the Little Bits. Kale, do you have anything to say about the Little Bits except for the fact that you didn't?
Elder Bits is old.
He is, in fact, that is an
he's-
astute observation of
He's,
you right
he's
there.
the Papa Smurf.
I don't really know, and I'm done
Does he-
talking about it because there's anything to say about the Little Bits.
All right. Is there a 50 Cent song about this?
There could very well be.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a show. I don't know if you guys watch. I watch Heathcliff a lot.
Heathcliff, Heathcliff, no one should terrify their neighborhood. But Heathcliff just won't be undone. You should realize he can win it with you.
And I don't remember that much about it, but I remember liking it a lot. And there's like who's the cool cat was the one that I liked.
I think
that
his
was-
name was Cool Cat.
Heathcliff was the cool cat.
No,
No,
Heathcliff wasn't cool. Heathcliff was like
The
kind of
one
a
that wore
dork.
the big poofy hat and he had the hot cat girlfriend.
Yeah. He was Heathcliff's friend who fucks.
Heathcliff was like the cool guy that was like the roughneck guy though. Like he was always going around causing trouble and stuff.
I think maybe Iggy. Was Iggy the cool cat? Maybe. Who knows?
Iggy Bit.
There was like 5 of them.
Iggy Pop.
Because
But there was a couple of spin-offs. There's one of them called Dingbat, because there's a character named Dingbat, which I thought was funny. That's just a funny word.
he's from Heathcliff.
Yeah, apparently. The other thing that's sort of funny about these is you start to realize like the careers that voice actors used to and still have. And like you look up some of these actors for their, you look them up on IMDb and it's like, oh, this guy has 700 performances.
Frank
Yeah,
Welker.
That's what I was talking. Frank Welker played Dingbat.
And
he was,
Megatron. And Fred on ScoobyDoo.
Megatron, Wheelie.
Yeah, but
Dr. Claw.
domestic abuse.
Oh god, yeah. See, I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Yeah, it was Fred on ScoobyDoo. He was
Megatron, Dr. Claw. I mean, that guy had a hell of a career.
Wonder Dog.
He was the Cave of Wonders in Aladdin.
He was on Heckle and Jekyll. I just like he was Mr. Mixaplicit. He was Darkseid.
Really quick, I want to jump in here. Was Hong Kong Phooey an 80s cartoon?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out.
Because it's not on your freaking list.
So I don't think so, but I don't know.
It was 70s.
I think it was 70s.
So Frank Welker, I was gonna look this up because you mentioned him, and his career is just insane, and he's still going. I think he's still doing acting. He's still around.
Yeah, he's, as far as I know, he's still alive. Peter Cullen's probably just as famous, but really, I don't think he did as much as Frank Welker.
Okay, everybody, give me. We're gonna do this like Price is Right style. How many acting credits does Frank Welker have?
Couple hundred.
Give me a number.
70.
How many?
170.
Jim?
125.
Brandon?
I'm gonna go with 223.
It's crazy. None of you guys are even close. It's 870.
Wow.
So I guess that means Brandon, you win because you were the highest without going over. So congratulations. It's funny. Heathcliff, I don't remember that much of, but I watched it all the time. I love the car that the cool cat had. Or no, yeah, that's where he would always take the girl like in the trailer, and then he would give her like a bone. That's, by the way, that's not meant to be a dirty reference. It was literally like a fish bone.
And he had a hot air balloon shaped like a hat.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he took her up with a hot air balloon. By the way, this is one of those shows, and there was a lot of these back in this period where you would have like sort of the wraparound show, which was Heathcliff, and then you could have other little shows that would kind of go along on inside of it, and you'd have like little like 5-minute things here and there. And I think there were some other shows that did that too, but I'm sure we'll get to them. So, did you guys? Apparently, Kale and I were the only two that liked Heathcliff.
I did not watch
I liked it. I just don't remember it much. Was it him that had the little barnyard animal side cartoon, or was that a Garfield thing?
I think that was Garfield.
No, that's Garfield. That's Garfield.
Okay.
I did not watch very many cartoons with animals in them.
A lot of people compared Heathcliff to Garfield, though.
But Garfield was better, I think. Heathcliff there was more going on in Heathcliff. And I don't remember liking the side cartoon in Garfield that much.
If the wild part of Tom from Tom and Jerry and the physical look of Garfield had a baby, it would be Heathcliff.
Yeah, kind of would. Just for reference, this Heathcliff. Now, this is one of those ones I'm not clear about because I think there were several iterations. And this one went for 2 seasons and 26 episodes, which is actually kind of strange because usually cartoon shows in this period would have these crazy long seasons. We'll talk about some shows later on where you'd have like one season with like 40 or 50 episodes. So this is, 2 seasons, 26 episodes, which isn't too many.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
And
by the way,
on
Hong Kong Phooey was 1974.
Oh, so a little before. So the next one is the Flintstones Comedy Hour.
You should have a great old time.
So this one has a whole bunch of things, and I think we've all watched the Flintstones. That show's ubiquitous.
Yeah, but is this an after thing? Is the Flintstones Comedy Hour the same as the Flintstones?
I'm not sure exactly. So
this says spin-off of the Flintstones.
Probably because I would have kind of thought the Flintstones would have been the 70s, like late 70s.
Well, yeah, it might have been.
But this is the Comedy Hour. So this had the Flintstones, Dino, and then Dino had a little show with like a rat or something. I remember Dino. That. Dino was like their dog, who's like a little dinosaur thing.
Yeah.
And then there was Captain Caveman. And wasn't he also like a lawyer or something?
I think that was a later commercial.
Commercial?
Well, somebody help me out. Who's the caveman guy with the club who like would run around and hit stuff with the club?
Yeah, that's Captain Caveman.
Caveman.
Okay. Yeah, Captain Caveman.
But his club would actually do other things, like it would open up and he'd have like special.
He was Inspector Gadget Caveman.
That's right. Could he fly?
Yes.
Much like Thor, I think he just threw his club really hard and it made him fly.
But then they also had like the monsters. It was like a Frankenstein and his wife little bit that was on that show too.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. That whole thing's a hot mess, man.
I think it was
people trying to solve.
Yeah, man. I feel like my brain's turned into pudding. I don't remember a lot of these, but I remember. Yeah. Is that where the Shmoo started?
Mm.
I love the name.
I do remember the
The
Shmoo.
Shmoo did come from Captain Caveman. I'm not sure when, but I do kind of remember the Shmoo coming from Captain Caveman.
Well, fair enough. I promise we're gonna have more to say about some of these shows. I think 80s pretty early. At this point, I was barely alive. And none of the rest of these guys were particularly old either. So all this stuff I would have seen in syndication. I mean, I probably saw a lot of it, but it would have been only in syndication.
Yeah, I was 5 in 1980, so.
Jim, what do you mind me asking what year you were born?
73.
Okay, so you're a couple. So you would have been like 7.
He's so old.
I know. That's what I was gonna say.
So yeah, what you just said about the Flintstones hour was why, like, my background, Thunder the Barbarian was magical compared to a lot of the other stuff.
Oh, we'll talk about a Thundar. Thundar is right around the corner.
All right.
No, yeah, I don't. Do you remember the variety? Because like variety shows were kind of a big thing in the 60s and 70s, and I think still kind of lingered into the 80s a little bit. But I think it kind of started to die off a little bit by then, or mostly by then. And so this was probably their attempt to do the. Oh, by the way, the Monsters one was called the Frankenstones, which.
Oh, right, because it has to fit in with the Flintstones, right?
Right.
So they just
Even
added
though it
stones to it, and then it fit.
Even though it doesn't actually make any sense.
Do you think the variety thing was kind of based on the idea that they used to have variety shows for adults?
No, yeah, I think it absolutely was. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think it was
definitely.
kind of like let's do the variety show for kids.
So some of the other cartoons on this this year and the next year got packaged together, like Tarzan, Lone Ranger, Zorro were all done by the same company, and they kind of always had I don't know if it was a half an hour or an hour where they did 2 of them, and they kind of switched them in and out.
Well, I mean, you think about it, it's kind of great, especially if you got an open slot to fill. You can do basically take cartoons that were filmed 5 or 10 years ago, cut them, repackage them, and it's a new show, and you've basically paid no labor for it.
You really got to
talk about companies love doing.
That's kind of what the Animaniacs tried to bring back in the 90s.
Yeah, doing a show about this in the 90s would be interesting too, except I think we would probably not go as deep into the 90s, because I think that sort of like the kids cartoon kind of died off to some degree.
Yeah, it did.
And I guess it's not as popular. Anyway, so this one I have nothing to say, but I think it's interesting. They did a Fonz spinoff cartoon called Fonz and the Happy Days Gang.
Oh, now the gang got zapped into that time machine, and they're like traveling through time.
And yeah, they it looks like they got the voices. Looks like Ron Howard, Henry Winkler, of course Frank Welker was in it, because he was apparently contractually obligated to be in every cartoon show that was ever produced. And it looks like it ran for it was narrated by Wolfman Jack, who was kind of a big personality in the 80s.
Yeah.
It's Wolfman Jack.
Indeed. Ran for 24 episodes. I don't know. Did you guys watch that show at all? I never. I just thought it was interesting. Sort of.
I didn't even know it was a thing.
No,
I didn't either. That's why. This is one of those. I didn't have anything to say about it, but I wanted to at least say, hey, there was a Fonz cartoon with Henry Winkler.
I just following up on what we were saying, if you ever are interested, look up on YouTube Frank Welker and how he the Megatron voice, because he tells the story of how he came up with it. It's really good.
Yeah,
and then he does it.
If there's not a documentary about him, there should be. I mean, 870 credits is a fair number of credits. Okay, so this is the first one that I think is, I don't know. This is another one of those ones where they had this is the Wikipedia entry is really good about this. So the actual name of the show is Hanna-Barbera's World of Super Adventure.
Hanna-Barbera's World of Super Adventure, featuring the most fantastic collection of spectacular superheroic stars ever assembled.
Which is a 30-minute show, and it's essentially repackaging old cartoons to include Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, which is 67 to 69, the old Fantastic Four show, which is 67 to 70, Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossibles, which was 66 to 68, the Herculoids, which I think Caleb brought up, which is 67 to 68, Moby Dick and the Mighty Mightor, which is another one of those things you look at and you're like, that can't be spelled. Like, that can't be that. It's literally the Mighty Mightor. Whatever. Shazam and Space Ghost and Dino Boy.
Space Ghost.
This is
Ghost.
This is a long time before he was coast to coast. I don't know. Did you guys watch, like, Jim, being especially a comic guy, did you watch the original Fantastic Four show from the late 60s at all?
Did not. I mean, I have big recollections of seeing the robot float around, but I think it was enough before my time that I never really watched very much of that. So I do remember watching some Herculoids and Space Ghost. I have no idea when I would have watched that. Maybe this.
They
Later.
syndicated the shit out of that because that was on until the 90s.
Right.
Like even the originals, not just like the revamped ones. But yeah, Herculoids. I tagged that one because that's one that I actually watched on a fairly regular basis. They had Gloop and Gleep, the formless, fearless wonders, and let's see, there was the big gorilla guy, and the laser shooting flying dragon dinosaur guy.
All right.
We have Xandor
Xandor
the
was
protector,
the leader, and his
Tara,
wife, that's his wife, and the boy.
Dorno,
Yeah.
and then the five creatures are Zoc, who is a bat-winged laser dragon, because
Yep.
obviously it's the 1980s. There's going to be a bat-winged laser dragon.
Why not?
I have
Excuse me,
one.
not the 80s. This is the 60s. Igu, who is a rock ape.
Yeah. He's basically
Tundru.
Korg.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I said he was basically Korg.
Fair enough. Tundro, who's a four-horned rhinoceros triceratops hybrid
That shoots hot rocks out of his nose.
Right.
and then, as you say, Gloop and Gleep.
Yes.
If you were to watch Gloop and Gleep glide into a fight, who do you suppose would win?
Honestly, they win a lot because they're just so durable. Like, they just do all kinds of terrible things to them, and they're just so resilient. They just survive everything.
Fair enough. Yeah, I watched. I know of these, but I don't know much about them. Again, this is still a little ways before me. I don't know, Jim. What are your Herculoids memories?
I don't really remember why the people were in the show because they never did anything. It was always the creatures that saved the day.
They're space cavemen or something.
Right. And I don't remember. I have no recollection of what they fought. I just remember the bat-winged laser eyed thing and the stone ape and the triceratops to shoot stone.
Kind of like the Space Ghost thing where they just had a cadre of different enemies that would just show up randomly.
Right. Yeah.
The one that gets me is Shazam, because it is. I thought it was just a misspell or a misspelling of Shazam, but it wasn't. It's its own thing. Shazam. I guess he's a genie. So
That kind of makes 80 cents,
Yeah.
60 cents or whatever.
So it's like Kazam.
Ish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the whole what's that the like the Berenstein, you know, that thing where like people remember something that happened that never actually happened. Because there was the
Is that a thing?
yeah,
Is
what's
it-
the
Yeah.
movie? There's the movie with Jesus. The title of this episode is just going to be Mike, Jim, Brandon, and Kale vaguely remember things.
That's, to be fair, a lot of our episodes.
Well, yeah, it's so if you didn't like it by now, it's not going to feel that much. But no, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal did that movie
Oh,
about him being
Shaquille?
a genie, and like
Yeah.
everybody remembered there being another one that
With
was made
Sinbad.
by Sinbad, and it never really happened. Like it
Right.
just wasn't real. And like there's a whole bunch of those like mass psychosis things where we just kind of remember that being a thing, and it just wasn't.
like Trump winning?
Well, yeah. Okay, so this is a big one that I think we have all seen a bunch of. And that is, so the name of this show is actually Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo.
Puppy power! Scooby-Doo. Uncle Scooby?
But I mean, we're just going to talk about Scooby-Doo because I mean, that show was, you know, multiple iterations
Scrappy
over the
Doo
years.
dick.
And by the way, Frank Welker also in this cartoon.
Yep.
So this show went 33 episodes, 3 seasons, 33 episodes. I've got to be honest, I never liked Scooby-Doo. I never liked it. I always thought it was like it was getting in the way of other cartoons that I would rather watch. It reminded me a lot of like Captain Planet that way, where it's like there's like 4 cartoons I want to watch, and right in the middle is freaking Scooby-Doo. And I'm like, oh God.
Honestly, as a social justice warrior, you would think that kind of thing would appeal to you because they're always revealing someone who's basically trying to swindle people.
Yeah, but there's never anything different about it. It's like always the same. It's the same story, 500 episodes in a row.
Well,
And,
it's
and
happened
Shaggy and
500
Scooby.
times.
Well, and Shaggy and Scooby are always frightened by ghosts, but ghosts don't seem to exist in their world. It's always like aged white bankers. I mean, there is no ghost.
You'd figured they'd be used to it by now.
Yeah.
It's like you've seen 2,700 ghosts.
It's the rich guy.
0 actual ghosts.
You figure Fred would turn to Wilma one time and be like, you know, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
I ain't buying this shit no more, Wilma.
I mean, like, it's been a long time we've been doing this, and just
Hey,
no
Wilma.
ghosts, no spirits, no nothing.
You look
And
a
it's
little-
I'm
always
gonna-
like the person who called us, or like someone who related to the person that called us.
Take those glasses
I'm
off.
gonna grab the mystery bat out of the mystery machine and start swinging and see if it's a ghost.
Mystery bat.
We're like, ooh, whack.
Nope, not a ghost.
Not a
Look,
ghost.
it's bleeding.
It is a head injury, but it's not a ghost.
So
And
I
Frank
will-
Welker starts laughing like Megatron.
I will at least say the older ones where they were just formulaic were better than when they tried to add in like Scrappy Doo or the Globetrotters or Batman or their guests.
What all shows do, though, when they realize they're dying, they add new characters to try.
Scooby Doo never died. It's still going on.
I remember liking the Harlem
You did
Globetrotters,
not?
and I don't know why. But other than that, yeah, Scrappy Doo's terrible. It's like, you remember on Married with Children when they added that character 7, and it was just like they just added a child, and it's like, keep watching our show, and it's like the people that watch Married with Children don't want to watch a show with a kid. It's just no. So
Unless you're abusing him.
well, the funny thing about 7 was he was just gone in the next season, and they just like, nah, he's just gone.
He died.
They ate him. I don't know, Jim, do you have any other thoughts on the Scoobies Doo?
No. They got
Who's
no
the
way.
best character in Scooby-Doo?
Shaggy, maybe.
Yeah,
I
good.
don't know, like Scooby's all right.
I feel like Velma's the only one worth a shit.
Yeah, that's for true. That's true.
I feel like if you had literally deleted every single other person on the mystery bus, except for Velma, the episodes basically would happen just as they did. Like she would have solved the crime in exactly
if you're
the same
looking
amount
to
of
solve
time.
the mysteries, yeah. But Shaggy's basically like an anti-work icon if you wanted.
Yeah, fair enough.
He likes
But-
really big sandwiches.
He likes
And-
not doing anything. I love that.
And those sandwiches really are like, you could never eat those sandwiches. They're not, it's just not conceivable.
Not
Those
for a
sandwiches
while.
are 50,000 calories each.
And the problem is what?
Well, I'm just saying he has some severe stomach problems.
How is he so thin? Does he have a tapeworm?
It's the only
It's all
time
the
he eats that
price.
week.
Well, I mean, he started in the 70s, so he's,
Well,
he's
yeah,
probably on
they
heroin,
solve
right?
mysteries for a living, so they're probably really poor.
Shaggy's
They're like,
definitely on
"We're gonna
heroin.
Find the ghost, aka rich guy.
They never get paid.
We kind of already talked about it, but the next one on the list is the Tarzan and the Tarzan? The Tarzan. It's the Tarzan.
He's the Tarzan.
Am I the only one bothered by that? Like, why is it the Tarzan?
It's not bad when you read the rest of it. It's Tarzan Lone Ranger Adventure Hour. That makes more sense.
Yes.
For I am Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle. The Lone Ranger.
Okay, there you go. The Tarzan / Lone Ranger Adventure. Why is there a slash? Why doesn't it say the Tarzan and Lone Ranger
They
Adventure
needed a
Hour?
guitar solo.
Maybe they just
Yeah.
didn't say it like that. I don't know.
So I'm assuming Tarzan swings through ropes and the Lone Ranger
Vines.
No,
rides.
no,
silver.
no, no, no. Tarzan episodes were actually worth watching.
Okay.
Yeah, there was like Gorilla Grodd type character. There's an ape city, and the apes all had it out for Tarzan. So some of the episodes were actually kind of interesting.
Why did they not like Tarzan?
I don't know, because he's a white colonial power.
So this is kind of
Yeah.
interesting. Jim, I don't know if you remember this or not. So when it lists the periods it was going through, Tarzan Lord of the Jungle's 80 to 82, the Lone Ranger's 80 to 82, but then it says the New Adventures of Zorro from 81 to 82. So apparently about halfway
Yeah,
through the run, they added Zorro in.
They switched Tarzan out for Zorro.
This says that the Tarzan was still showing on there at the same time. I don't know, maybe he just popped in
They
every
just
so
kind
often.
of shuffled them around.
Tarzan originally was Burroughs, right?
I think that's right. Yeah. The one thing I distinctly remember about Tarzan is there was a lot of swimming, and they had like 3-second long animations of swimming, and they played them again and again and again and again.
Oh, he thought he said squinting. So.
No,
I thought he said sweating.
swimming.
Just somebody standing there sweating.
In 3 seconds. God, it's a
I'm so sweaty.
jungle suck.
By the way,
It's
yes,
hot.
Tarzan is Edgar Rice Burroughs.
I thought so. He's an interesting writer.
So
The whole John Carter thing is pretty good.
I will also say this is my first cartoon to mention toys. Lone Ranger had some great toys that went along, and I don't think they were actually from the TV show. I think they were from a movie that came out at about the same time. Obviously, same characters, but they had great horses. The characters all fit on the horses, and they had holsters on their legs, so you could put their guns on them. Pretty high tech for early 1980s.
Nice.
How
Their
many
knees,
of you?
bent, their knees bent. I mean, compared to Star Wars figures, these things were fantastic.
How
And this is
many
a
of you
pre-G.I. Joe
had
world.
Yes.
How many of you had the gun belt with the 6 shooters, the little bullets?
Yep.
Anybody? Just me and Jim.
Say it again.
The plastic gun belt with the holsters, with the silver 6-shooters with the white handles.
Yep.
Oh,
Classic.
yeah, okay. I didn't have his toys. I had MASH action figures when I was growing up.
You make
That's
mash
messed
action
up.
figures?
They did.
I kind of forgot about that.
I had Alan Alda and Father Mulcahy, I think.
So,
Okay, now since we've been going through this, was Frank Welker or not in this cartoon?
I'm gonna say yes.
which
Jim?
cartoon are we
Yes,
talking
it
about?
was.
Any of the three of them.
I have no idea.
What's your guess? Give me a yay or a nay.
Yes.
Brandon.
Yes.
Yes, he was.
Was he the gorilla?
He was credited as various characters.
Did he play the elephant?
I'd have to look it up.
That's all right.
He's just listed as because that's another thing back in this time period. There probably was like, he just shows up, just he's going to voice 5 characters and,
Right.
you don't even get to know. Now I've never heard of this show, so we probably won't talk about very much, but it's Thunder.
Rude.
The Barbarian.
Thundar, the Barbarian.
Thundar, the Barbarian.
What is not Conan? Jim, what about Thunder the Barbarian?
So Thunder the Barbarian is the best animated show of the early 80s, in my opinion. It only ran for a little while, like 21 episodes. But compared to the other stuff that's on, like Heathcliff and the Flintstones, weird horror people, this show is fantastic. It's set in the far future, 1994. Planet comes by Earth, destroys the ecosystem. Thousands of years later, it's a post-apocalyptic world with super science and super sorcery. And Thundar is an escaped slave. He finds a magical sun sword. He's got some sidekicks, and they go around meting out justice to wizards and super scientists all over the place.
Take this, scientist.
Yep.
So
I
there's
just like
magic
the idea that
and-
there's super science. Like, science has done nothing for us. Like, I know, let's try super science.
Like their hair goes all yellow and poops up,
Just like,
and they destroy planets. Super science mode.
by the way, Jim, you were dead on 21 episodes exactly. I remember, is Ookla, was he like wear like a red coat and like hover around?
Ookla is the Chewbacca stand-in. He does not
Okay.
wear a red coat. He just has underwear on and boots. And he doesn't say anything. He just goes wow, 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 like that.
Oh, okay.
His name is from UCLA. I guess a lot of the animators involved in it were from UCLA, so they called him Ookla. That's not how they spelled it, but that's where his name came from.
That's fun.
Now, the important question here is this a show containing Frank Welker or a show not containing Frank Welker?
This one has to have Frank Welker.
Kale?
Of course. I'm just gonna say yes to all of them. I'm assuming
I'm
he's
not going to say yes to all, but this seems like one he should be in.
I
To my
bet he
knowledge,
would
this show has no Frank Welker.
get out of town.
Nope. Now I can't definitively say that. I only have the main characters listed and additional voices. So I can't say he never played anything, but certainly never played any main cast character or like recurring character. So on that bombshell, Jim, do you have any final thoughts on Thunderer, the Barbarian?
Everyone should go watch a couple of Thundar episodes. I think
I will
you'll
say
be.
this. In 1994, the climate did start getting destroyed. It didn't have anything to do with the planet, but it did start out.
All right, so this is the last show we're going to talk about for 1980, and this one's a classic. I watched this a million times. The Tom and Jerry Show.
the Tom and Jerry Comedy Show.
Never heard.
This is called the Tom and Jerry Comedy Hour. And again, I'm not sure if they had. I mean, did Tom and Jerry start off in the 70s?
60s, I think.
60s. Okay. So we're just going to talk about Tom and Jerry again. I don't want to separate out between which, iteration they were on. I like Tom and Jerry a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love the mean dog. It's very much kind of a Warner Brothers kind of a shtick of like, there's a fast one, and then there's the one that's trying to get them. I mean, it's very much Roadrunner and Coyote, Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny. Like, they're not that dissimilar. Who was going after Speedy Gonzalez?
That was Sylvester.
Yeah.
Oh, it was? Really? Huh. I feel like Sylvester's punching above his weight there a little bit, but
Did we not mention Looney Tunes?
Looney Tunes is not on the list. I don't think.
Well,
anyway.
again, that would have been primarily in the 60s and 70s. They probably did a lot of syndication in the 80s, but I don't think there was a new show that started in the 80s.
Well, there's like the Looney Tunes babies. They jumped on that craze with like Muppet Babies and stuff.
Okay, Muppet Babies. We'll talk about that later. I watch Muppet Babies a lot.
But there was a Looney Tunes version of that too, where they were all kids.
So Tiny Tunes.
The Tom and Jerry, as far as Tom and Jerry goes, I like the older ones. The old, like when they were in space.
Tom and Jerry for me was the time where I got up and got stuff to eat or went to the bathroom or something.
The graphics.
You could never wait for that to be over.
Or the animation, I should say, wasn't very good.
Don't you think Tom and Jerry was a little bit more sadist than Looney Tunes? Like, I understand people like got crushed and should have gotten killed in both the cartoons, but like, I feel like Tom got chopped up and shaved and stuff.
Tom had a great yell.
I feel like the Coyote got it way worse than Tom did.
Wasn't there a whole bunch of racism in Tom and Jerry too? Like, wasn't there like a mammy character? Like the maid was.
Oh, I'm
like,
sure there was tons.
black
I don't
coated
remember,
or something.
I'm sure there was tons.
You could only see her from like the waist down, but you could hear her voice and
at least a couple of times. It probably wasn't nearly as racist as Looney Tunes was, or Disney by far.
I don't know. I feel like the Roadrunner gave like the Coyote had it way worse than Tom did. Personally, like how many cliffs did he fall off of?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, falling off a cliff is not the same as like getting shaved.
Yeah, but he would fall off a cliff and get crushed, and then a rock would fall on him after that. It's like, he's had enough. The Roadrunner is a sadist.
Accidentally got painted, and then Skull tried to rape it.
he put up a little umbrella and still get crushed by a mountain.
Brandon, Tiny Toons is actually 1990. I kind of thought it was. I didn't think it was 80s, like just barely outside of the 80s. And I watched Tiny Toons quite a bit. I think there's some argument about Tiny Toons versus the Animaniacs because they were kind of similar time. And I started watching Tiny Toons and had stopped watching. And I think you had not been watching cartoons at all. And then you were watching Animaniacs. So I think you're probably more Animaniacs and I'm more Tiny Toons.
Oh, I'm definitely more Animaniacs. Yeah. But
we can get into the Pinky and the Brains when we talk about the 90s.
Brendan, did you make a little curtsy?
What do you mean?
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
Yeah.
All right. Jim, do you have any thoughts on Tom and or Jerry?
Oh.
All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts on 1980? Because I kind of feel like 1980s, it's real early for me. So most of this stuff is really digging deep into the old non-functional brain pan. Most of the stuff that we talked about here is stuff that I saw in syndication much later on. So I don't know. What do you guys think 1980? I think we know what Jim's go-to for 1980 is definitely Thundar the Barbarian.
That's right.
Brandon Kale, what would be your go-to?
Of those, Brandon, go first.
Of these, I would probably say anything with the Flintstones.
I'm definitely a Tom and Jerry guy. I love Tom and Jerry. And
I probably would go Thundar the Barbarian sight unseen just because it's different than everything else.
So different.
I could rock a windbreaker like nobody's business.
All right, that is 1980. We are going to take a break. We will be back and we will talk about 1981. So